with that, do we just want to move straight into the wide receiver rankings then? I think that's a good place to go. We did this with Jake, actually, but Jake couldn't be here to defend any of his hot takes, although I feel like...
You want to know what's interesting, JT? With Jake?
What's interesting?
I just found it interesting that, all the times during the mock drafts, remember when I was one pick ahead of him, I would pick Jaylen Waddle, and then he'd be like, oh, I took the guy you should have taken. And then now, if you look at his rankings, who does he have at number 2, JT?
He's joining the dark side. He's joining...
Are we the dark side?
I know.
We're the dark side.
I'm the last one on this ship, it seems like.
And he's
on this
running.
Devonta Smith ship. All of my fellow pirates have abandoned ship for other receivers,
Jake.
and I'm still here like, what's happened, boys?
Jake
All right. That's a good place to start, actually. So we all, for the exception of Frank, have Ja'Marr Chase as the number 1 wide receiver. Frank has Devonta Smith. I feel like we've debated this to death. We're team Ja'Marr Chase. I'm not anti Devonta Smith, but at his price, I'm anti Devonta Smith. We could do this every week if we wanted to. I feel like any listener, if you just want to go back to any of our previous podcasts or YouTube videos, you'll find it. You'll find us debating Ja'Marr Chase, Devonta Smith, what we like and don't like. So I feel like we'll just move on from that, right? And then moving on to wide receiver 2 is where we get crazy. So,
JT, you're wild.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I am. we've got Jake and Lounis grouping together here at wide receiver 2 to pick Jaylen Waddle, who becomes our consensus wide receiver 2. Frank has Ja'Marr Chase because obviously he didn't have him at 1. I guess I'm out on an island here. I've got Rashad Bateman as my number 2 wide receiver. I guess I could go through and kind of defend why I picked Rashad Bateman here. Again, this is another guy that I feel like we've talked about to kind of death, but I just feel like Rashad Bateman, while he's not specifically great at anything, I think he just has all of the tools at maybe not an elite level, but like a very much close to that kind of level where he's just a star player. Like, he's not going to be as fast as Jaylen Waddle. He's not going to run as crisp routes as Devonta Smith does, but he is just someone that I could see as the next... This is kind of a hot take. No. You take that back. You take that back right now. I think if I was to comp him, I just think like it's not a great comp because they're not similar. I see him more in similarity to like a Des Bryant type, but I think from production value, like he could be the next Devontae Adams. Like that's kind of where I see him. Obviously, it's going to take the right fit for that to happen, and right progression. But that's, I think, between him and Ja'Marr Chase, these are 2 wide receiver 1s that we're going to have for the next, 5-6 years. But I'm just really high on Bateman. And as we'll see later on, I guess I'm way higher on him than consensus.
Dude, to be honest, though, like, I'm not necessarily out on Rashad Bateman. I know I have him relatively low in my rankings. I think part of it is that I felt like I when I finished watching his tape, I watched a lot of tape on Rashad Bateman, and I really felt like I wanted to see a little bit more in all phases. Because you were saying, oh, well, he's a Des Bryant. Like, yeah, he had a couple contested catches, but it wasn't consistent. Like, he's got a good release. He's got good feet. His hands, meh at best, but he can improve. And it's like, if I compare him to the receivers last year, someone like Brandon Ayuk, who within 2 games, I was like, okay, this guy is a stud. Like, first-round pick receiver. I just haven't found that for a lot of these receivers, not just Rashad Bateman. Like, I think a lot of these guys that are in this, like, from pick rank 3 to, like, rank 18, it's like, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen with them. I think that they all have a lot of flaws. So, for me, Rashad Bateman, the first thing I need to see is I need to see some draft capital, which I'm not even sure I'm going to get, to be completely honest. But that's the minimum thing I need to see out of Rashad Bateman for me to believe in him. But at that point, then you got the JTs who are going to be picking him high in the first round.
I think
Yeah.
draft capital is going to have a big impact because I've seen him, like, I remember early on in the offseason process he was going in that 20s range. Like, a lot of people had him mocked to Baltimore, for example, or like a Green Bay. I've seen him drop out of like a lot of people's top 50. So I think it's going to depend. Obviously, where he goes is going to be very telling.
If he ends up becoming like a third round pick, that's when I get a little worried. But anywhere in the top 2 rounds, I'm fine with. There were some studies that kind of showed that NFL teams, like, there really isn't a huge difference between players picked in the end of the middle/end of the first round compared to players picked at all in the second round. Then once you get to the third round and beyond, it gets kind of
I completely
hazy.
agree with that. I think people take way too much stock in the order of where they're picked and not are generally around where they are, because one thing that we don't see and don't hear is that teams pick players to fill specific roles in their offenses. They're not just out there and saying, well, some of the teams at least aren't just saying, okay, well, who's the best right guard? Let's just listen to this scout and whoever he says is the best. No, like they have to fit a specific role, a specific system. And it's the same thing with receivers. You know, if a team, say they like a slot receiver, but they already have that position filled, or they don't want to use that in their offense, then they're not going to pick that, even though they might have him higher on their board. I think people forget that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's just once you get into the day 3 kind of receivers, that's when there is the big drop off. It's much harder to break out when you're day 3 draft capital and beyond, undrafted. I guess that means beyond. But yeah. All right, so I guess that's enough time spent on me hyping up Rashad Bateman just for someone to steal him in front of me in our drafts. So moving on, Jaylen Waddle was our consensus number 2. So we got Jamar Chase 1, Jaylen Waddle 2. I guess I'm the lowest on him out of the bunch, but I have him at pick 3. Oh, no, wait. Frank has him at 6,
no, you're
actually.
not.
Yeah, Frank has him at 6. All right, Frank, why are you low on Jaylen Waddle?
Once again, he's just a receiver that, for me, when I watched the tape, I was left with a lot of question marks. I think he's good. I think he's a good player. It's just, I think the main problem I have with him is that I saw basically zero physicality in his game. And we've seen receivers that are speed guys not be able to play at the NFL because they aren't good physically. If you're going to compare him to Tyreek Hill, you got to realize that this Tyreek Hill likes to play physical. We said it on the last podcast. Tyreek Hill, if he doesn't immediately burn you off the line, he wants to get in that hand fighting, that jam, and he's got really good balance. The dude was a freaking running back, for God's sakes. Jaylen Waddle is not that. Jaylen Waddle is purely, I want to beat you with quickness, I want to beat you with footwork, and I want to beat you with speed. And because he didn't necessarily, like, listen, he's my 6th prospect, basically tied with Elijah Moore. It's not like I'm really low on him. It's just nowhere near Devonta Smith, in my opinion. I understand the whole BMI and profile concerns. It's just, I think he's a little bit too one-dimensional. I didn't really see him line up on the outside. I didn't see him play physical. For me, at the NFL, a lot of that stuff does not fly. Especially when you get later into seasons, there are teams that are just going to go press man on you. And you got to be able to beat that physicality from a lot of these quick D-backs.
Okay, Frank, you made 2 really great points, I think, there. Right? So, first you talked about, we're not, like, don't compare him to Tyreek Hill unless you're sure about it. I just think that's something that people keep doing with so many wide receivers, and it's like, guys, like, let's not worry about trying to find the next Tyreek Hill, because that's when you just overdraft players that end up being, you know, not relevant in fantasy.
I will say Waddle reminds me more of Tyreek than Henry Ruggs did last year.
Definitely.
For sure.
But
I think JT's right, though. Why are we comparing any receiver to a guy that played running back at school, transitioned into receiver? Like, there's not a whole lot of guys that have that skill set that he does.
Exactly.
I think Waddle has a yards after catch ability. Tyreek
Yeah,
has.
but it's different, though. Like, I don't even care about the yards after catch. Like, Tyreek, like, he just plays so physical. Every time I see Tyreek Hill, he wants that fighting. He wants that. You know, Jaylen Waddle, I've not seen one snap where he wants it. Like, I got into an argument on Reddit with someone. It's not that he can't go up and catch a 50-50 ball. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how he wants to run his routes, how he wants to get open, how he wants to play as a receiver before he catches the ball. He doesn't want the physicality. He wants to beat you with his feet and his quickness.
I feel like Will Fuller is probably a better comp to Jaylen Waddle. I think Will Fuller is probably the guy that I think of when I think Jaylen Waddle, right? Because they're not big guys. Like they're as you said, they're not physical guys, but they are those guys that can be that deep threat too, though. But can also do stuff with the ball in their hands.
Trying to think what my comp is for him.
If you were to combine Will Fuller with Sterling Shepard, I think that
those are two really good comps. I feel like
for me,
I like that a lot.
Because for me, here's the thing with Waddle. I think he can play on the outside. I think at Bama he was asked to play inside a lot. I think he has the physical capabilities to play on the outside.
I don't disagree with that. It's just I'm not going to put him at my wide receiver too when I haven't seen it.
That's fair. But he did occasionally, but not as much this past season. But I will say with Waddle and the Will Fuller thing, I don't think that does enough justice to how much I think if you hit Waddle on an in route or a slant, he has a much higher chance of just beating a bunch of guys and taking that to the house than Will Fuller. I agree with the straight line speed aspect, but I just think I'm way more scared of Jaylen Waddle with the ball in his hands than I ever am of Will Fuller. Because Will Fuller, I'm scared of burning me deep. Not so much he may take this slant to the house.
See, it's funny. I think it's the other way around for me. I feel like I'm more... Not that I'm scared of Will Fuller with the ball in his hands, but I don't really feel like I'm too scared of Waddle with the ball in his hands.
Really?
No, not... Maybe on kick returns where there's more space, but... I think that people overestimate a little bit his yards after catch ability. I might be wrong there, but... I do really fear Waddle on an island one-on-one because he's one of the best double move receivers I think I've watched.
There's the thing that scares me about Jaylen Waddle. He'll make every defensive back's tackling angle trying to chase him down look so stupid. He's going to outrun everyone so bad, and he has those kick return skills. I think that's kind of the thing that impressed me most. And that's, I think, one of the bigger differences also between him and Ruggs, because they're both speedsters. But I think... Well, Ruggs had pretty good ability afterward, just he was insanely fast, but I don't know. I just like Waddle.
Let's move on, though.
Yeah, all right. So, our next guy. So, again, we had Chase at 1. We had Waddle as our 2. Devonta Smith is our 3. And, again, it's something that we could run on until the cows come home. The biggest difference is I have him all the way down at 7. Frank has him at 1. We've said it a billion times. If you want to go listen to one of
Me and Jake have him at 3
episodes. Yeah, Jake and Lounis are with him at 3, so that makes him our 3rd wide receiver. I think we could just kind of skip over him. We've talked about him so much. Rondelle Moore is our number 4 consensus, and we're pretty consistent in the most part. Where Lounis and I have him as the number. Actually, sorry, Jake and I have him as the number 4 wide receiver. Frank has him all the way up to number 3. Sorry, hold on.
I was going to say, I thought I had him at 4.
Jake and JT have him at 5. I have him at 3. Lounis has him at 4.
Yeah, sorry. Got my numbers mixed up. I can count, I swear. That does make him the consensus 4th overall receiver. He was someone that we talked about last week. We had a good clip on him where he came in and measured smaller than everyone thought he was going to be. But it's everyone knew he was small in the first place. So I feel like we're punishing him for being small twice, which I don't think is fair to Rondelle Moore.
If you turn on the tape for 30 seconds, you kind of see that he's shorter than everyone.
Yeah, everyone. If Rondelle Moore was 6 foot, he could be my wide receiver too. If he was 6 foot or 6'1",
definitely would be. Yeah, but
shortest guy in the room measures out to shortest guy in the room. Everyone shocked Pikachu.
Yeah, it's like we already knew this. If he was 6'1", he'd be, I think, my wide receiver too. Honestly,
it's also it's like we saw him at Frank said height isn't something that you could just hide. It's not like he's running around with high heels on. You look and you see, weight, I guess you could kind of be like, oh, wow, he weighs less than I thought. Maybe, I don't know, he just looks bigger with pads on or something. Height is not something that you could just hide. So I feel like everyone's kind of making a bigger deal about it than what it was. We talked about that on the last episode as well. There's a lot of things to like about Rondelle Moore. I sneaky think like he'll be a very good value pick for wherever he's going to end up in the draft. I think we could skip over him too. He's someone that we kind of, talked about in great detail.
You guys talked about him last episode too, yeah.
Yeah, so we're big on Rondelle Moore. Probably bigger than consensus, which we'll talk about. At number 5, someone that I just called the next Devonta Adams, which I am already kind of feeling lukewarm on, but I'm going to stick to it. We've got Rashad Bateman at 5. Moving on to number 6, someone that we have not covered yet, and we've only covered, I think, one other episode in the past. We've got Dyami Brown, and that's mostly powered by me and Frank having him at 4. Lounis has Dyami Brown at 7 in his rankings, and Jake, I don't even know where Jake has him at 8.
8.
So Frank and I have him at 4. Jake has him at 8. Lounis has him at 7. Dyami Brown, UNC. He actually ran a 4.4 at his pro day, so...
No way.
Yeah. No,
I
sorry,
like him
4.44. 4.44. Not 4.4 flat. 4.44.
He checks every box,
But,
dude. He literally checks every freaking box.
So my thing about Dyami Brown, right, was people were saying that he drops passes and he can't. He's not fast. Like, he doesn't have it. I've been saying for a
People
while
saying
now.
he's not fast?
Apparently.
Yeah. Well, go look on Reddit, Lounis. Go look on Reddit.
I believe you. I'm just saying that's so dumb.
We'll talk about him. We'll talk about him in the future with where consensus has him versus where we have him. But yeah, Frank just mentioned it. He checks every box, I feel like. I just think he's going to be that, other than Chase and Bateman, and I feel like maybe Waddle. I just feel a little more comfortable in where Waddle, like the floor of Waddle. But I truly believe Dyami Brown has one of the higher ceilings next to Chase and Bateman, in that he could be that alpha receiver for a team. I don't know about you, Frank. What do you think? What do you like about Dyami Brown?
So for Dyami Brown, he is basically the only receiver that, watching tape this season, I fell in love with. Devonta Smith, I already had a high grade on last year. So, like, me saying I like him is, okay, who cares? Like, old news. Same thing with Jamar Chase. We all knew he was good last year. For me, same thing with Rondale Moore. Those are my top 3 guys coming in. But Dyami Brown, I turn on the UNC games because, first off, watching UNC is great. I freaking love that program. They are awesome. They all play so hard.
That entire offense is really entertaining to watch because you got their 2 running backs who are going to go this year, Dyami Brown, and then Howell, who's supposed to be a top 3 QB next year. So there was I don't
want to get into Howell because I've got some takes on Howell that people aren't going to like.
That'll come in the future.
But Dyami Brown, dude, I was really shocked because I know JT had been saying all offseason, oh, Dyami Brown, like, very good, very good. And I just never watched him. Dude, I turn on the tape and he's not necessarily making a ton of plays, but I think, A, the offense did hinder him a little bit. B, his skill set translates to the NFL perfectly. This is a guy, it's like when I watched Chase Claypool last year. You just look at him and you're like, well, they definitely could have used him more. He wins the reps. He's a huge deep threat. He's good with the ball in his hands. Yeah, he has a couple focus drops, but I'm not going to kill a guy for a D-back making a nice play on a couple of plays and him just turning his head up before looking the ball in. It's happened to the best. Like, listen, I'm going to say Antonio Brown's a bad receiver because early in his career he drops a screen pass looking ahead. Everyone does it. Dyami Brown, the 1.5 receiver that I fell in love with watching tape this year. I have him at number 4, same tier as Rondelle Moore. I actually think that there's a slightly decent chance that he can get some good draft capital in the NFL draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he went towards the end of the first round.
As long as he's drafted in the top 3 rounds, I'm loving Dyami Brown wherever he goes. One more thing about him, Frank. I've got a sneaky comp on him. You're a Steelers fan. What do you think about, like, Santonio Holmes? Do you think I feel like when I see him, I get a lot of Santonio Holmes vibes from Dyami Brown.
Who did Chris Sims comp him to? Didn't Chris Sims comp him to Odell?
I'll take these comps.
I wouldn't be. I feel like when the ball's in the air, that's probably when he comps him to OBJ, because it's kind of like if you watch him play, like he's kind of just running, and all of a sudden, like he's faster than the corner next to him out of nowhere, kind of, and the ball he gets like right underneath it. I forget what team it's against. I'm describing kind of a specific play, but there is a pattern of that happening. So yeah, I do see the Odell when the ball's in the air. From the line of scrimmage and lining up and stuff, I don't know if I necessarily see that with Odell, but I'm not upset with it.
Yeah. In terms of Santonio Holmes, I don't think he necessarily has the shake, but he's more physical.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just comping him to some great wide receivers. So I guess we are very high on Dyami Brown.
Yeah, I do want to say, like, wide receiver 7 sounds kind of low. I really like it. Like, I think I agree with you guys. He has one of the highest ceilings in this draft. It's just there's so many receivers that I do like in this draft. It was hard putting him ahead of some others. Like, I put him ahead of Bateman. I put him ahead of Terrace Marshall. There's just some guys that I'm like, it's hard for me to put him ahead of Rondale Moore or Toney or Elijah Moore. Like, so yeah, I mean, we'll get into those guys in a little bit. But.
All right. So he was actually, based on our consensus, he's tied with Rashad Bateman for number 5. So whichever one you want to put 5, 6, Bateman, Dyami Brown, that's who they are. Moving on to what ends up being the 7th wide receiver in our consensus ranking is Elijah Moore. It looks like I might be the lowest on Elijah Moore. I've got him at 8. Jake's got him at 6, as well as Frank, and Lounis has him all the way up on 5. I kind of feel like when we're talking about Elijah Moore, what Lounis just said about Dyami Brown is how I kind of feel about Elijah Moore. I don't dislike him. I just kind of like everyone else above him. I don't think, obviously, I feel like everyone here will agree he's not an alpha. Like, I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 on the team. Do either of you disagree with that?
I think he could lead the team in catches, but I don't think he's like a conventional outside, like, X receiver.
Yeah, same. I think he can definitely produce, but yeah, he's not going to be like that prototypical number 1.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about him in the past. For me, it's just like, he's good at most things. I don't know if he's great at anything.
I was a little underwhelmed with this tape, to be honest, with how much people were hyping him up and looking at all those, like, r/dynasty, like, separation and route running clips and, like, highlight things. I was expecting a little bit more out of him.
What aspects were you let down from? Like, is there something you were looking for that you were kind of like, eh?
Well, first off, I hate that Ole Miss offense, to be completely honest.
I was about to say I wasn't a big fan of that offense this year.
So that's the first thing I lead off with. I have never liked that offense, to be honest, for any of the receivers that came out. I've been pretty high on a lot of their receivers. I don't know. I think I was expecting a little bit more in, like, I guess, like, that short intermediate phase of the field. I think, like, a lot of his production was kind of schemed up to a certain extent. Like, not all of it, don't get me wrong. Like, he made some really good plays, but let's not act like he didn't get a fair share of basically run plays, like all those screens and that bull crap that definitely inflated his stats a little bit.
That's fair.
My prediction for Elijah Moore is, it's kind of unfair because I'm predicting where he goes, but I see a team like the Ravens being the one to draft him, and then his value just kind of plummets.
I hate that fit. I hate that fit.
I see it in my head. I see it coming up. Elijah Moore to the Ravens.
I'd be so mad.
I'm really scared he's going to become like the next Anthony Miller.
Yeah,
Did he run a 40 yet? Does anyone know his time?
Yeah, he actually ran a 4.33, I think. It was a really fast 40.
Ooh, damn.
Yeah.
These pro day times are getting crazy out here.
Again, it is pro day.
Because I was gonna say, you know who might kind of be my comp for him? Kind of reminds me. I think he has some Curtis Samuel in him.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially how Curtis was in Ohio State too, with kind of using him in a lot of those run plays and just kind of scheming plays for him. I thought he reminded me of that insane route running around 4.3 speed, playing in the slot a lot but can't play outside. That's who he kind of initially reminded me of. I don't know if that's the perfect comp because I didn't go like fully in depth thinking of every receiver, but that was a name that came to mind.
I mean, what you just described to me kind of feels more like a Tyler Lockett like player. And in that case, like, he is going to need like a solid QB, I feel like, to be, relevant. I think his talent's good, just not great. Like, this is kind of where I'm starting to feel like I'm starting to pump the brakes a little bit on these guys. I'm not totally
for me, it's
them.
like, I like him, but I'm not taking him if I had 112. I'm not that high on him. Whereas with Dyami Brown, I would.
Exactly, yeah. All right, let's move on. So now we're moving on to, we're only doing 10 of these, so we're on wide receiver 8. And this guy's an interesting one because I feel like Jake's normally the highest on him. And it appears that he is in this case too, so Jake can't really go back to bat for his guy. I always screw it up. Is it Tylan or Tylan Wallace?
I think
Tylan Wallace.
Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace.
I love Tylan Wallace.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good too. I have him as my wide receiver 9. He's our wide receiver 8 overall, Tylan Wallace. I have him at 9. Jake's got him at 7. Frank's also got him at 9. Lounis, he's your 10th. So we all kind of have him over the board. What Jake having him at 7? 10th.
Oh yeah, he's my 10th.
Yeah, Jake having him at 7 is kind of what pushes him up. So Jake can't really.
I can't believe he's ahead of my guy.
But Frank, if you want it, you said you love Tylan Wallace. What's there to love about him?
Dude, I've had Tylan Wallace on my radar for a while. I really, really like him. I think his game does translate to the NFL. I do have some major question marks, which is why I kind of have him. Like, honestly, from receiver 7, who my current receiver 7 would be Tamarion Terry, all the way to, like, probably receiver 13 or 14. They all have a very similar talent level. There's a lot of questions with Tylan Wallace. It's like, I really think his release is bad. And he plays in the Big 12, which is, like, major red flags if you look at Big 12 receivers from the past. But dude, this guy, he just is able to find the football. I remember the game against Tulsa where their quarterback got hurt, and their offense literally became, hey, let's just chuck the ball up to Tylan Wallace, and he made plays, and that works in the NFL. I think he's got good feel. Apparently, he ran like a 4.3 something at his pro day, which honestly shocked the crap out of me because he does not look like it on, I didn't know that. Tape.
I don't think I changed my rankings, but that definitely makes me like him more. If that's
if he gets second round draft capital, then I will be much higher on him. But until I see that, until I see an NFL team really believe in him, I haven't seen it consistently enough on tape for me to just buy him outright.
Him and one other wide receiver that we're going to talk about. I know I'm the analytical guy on here. Him and one other wide receiver that we will get to in a minute are the two that don't really check all of the boxes from an analytical standpoint, but they're the ones that I am still willing to kind of, I don't know if necessarily reach is the right word, but like the guys are at I don't know where you guys were taking them in your consensus. We'll talk about that later, but I wouldn't be upset taking him mid-second round, maybe even mid to early, depending on who's around the board. So he is someone I guess that I would be okay reaching for at what his current consensus value is. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add on him if you guys want to.
He's at a good price right now, which is what's very nice about it, is that you do not have to give up a ton. Like, because I have him at a very similar rating to someone like Rashad Bateman, which I understand is off consensus, but the price that I have to pay for the two of them is that I can literally drop an entire round and still land Tylan Wallace in some drafts, at least as of right now.
Yeah. We'll get to that when we're going to do a whole consensus breakdown. But yeah, all right. So to wrap up, to sum up the most recent picks, from 5 we got Bateman and Dyami Brown kind of tied. Then so they're 5 and 6. At 7's Elijah Moore. 8 is Tylan Wallace, and then now we're at 9. Terrace Marshall. He's someone that I've been the high piper for, I guess. I've been saying great things about Terrace Marshall. He's from LSU. He was playing with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. He's the other guy that I just mentioned that doesn't technically check all of the production standpoint and whatnot from an analytical sense, but he is someone that I'm definitely willing to reach for in the draft. I had a great line that I wanted.
He's the Kelvin Harmon to DK Metcalf and AJ Brown.
I don't disagree. Strong disagree. I can't think of a team with 3 great wide receivers on it because Alabama's not that. They don't have like the 3 great ones. But
last year they did. They had 4.
They're not great though, right?
Lunis be like Florida.
Kyle Pitts is so big he counts as 2.
All right, why do you like Terrace Marshall? Aside from the fact that he doesn't fit analytics.
The pat on my back kind of line that I had earlier is I just think he's going to be what like people wanted Denzel Mims to be. I said that a while ago when we were talking about him and we were first getting into him. He does kind of check like decent amount of boxes. It's just like he doesn't get that production standpoint, but like can you blame him when he's playing on a team with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? Justin Jefferson just had a rookie record-setting year on LSU, and Jamar Chase is considered one of the top wide receiver prospects to come out recently. So it's hard for me to blame him. I guess it is kind of hypocritical of me to say that when Devonta Smith doesn't do the same thing, but I just think the wide receivers at LSU are significantly better than the wide receivers at Alabama when it comes to what their pro style is going to be and what they'll do in the pros. But he does have that alpha wide receiver. He's like 6'3", 200 pounds. Like he's an alpha wide receiver for me. So he's someone that I'm willing to take the risk on because once we get past Terrace Marshall, there are some big speedy wide receivers that we still have listed, but I feel like none of them are as like they're more raw than what I think Terrace Marshall is, if that makes sense. I think Terrace Marshall is the one that's most likely to have success out of that next kind of group of guys.
All right, Loon, you're up. Last one is Toney.
So this is just blatant disrespect.
Oh, no.
This is blatant disrespect.
Wait till you get to consensus, people.
Which of you little shits didn't have him on your top 10?
All of us except for you.
Yeah, you're the only one that had him on the top 10.
To be fair, Lunis, I was very close to having him there because he's in that tier. Like I could easily replace him with Tamarion Terry.
How does your guys' opinion changes if he goes late first, early second in real life?
No, not at all. In fact, I'd be more afraid of drafting him there.
Does he doesn't enter your top 10?
No. I don't even know if he enters my top 15. I don't know if he enters my top 15.
I think it depends on what team he went to.
Did you watch the games?
Yeah, I've seen Kardarius Toney play.
Let me hear why Toney is not in your top 10.
Why
this is your job to tell us why he is in the top 10.
Okay, I'll tell you why he's in the top 10. Because for a lot of the same reasons Rondelle Moore is loved, I think Toney can do a lot of those same abilities. I don't think he's as kind of explosive. Well, actually, I think he's a little bit quicker. I think Rondelle Moore's just a little bit more built and stronger. But he's bigger than... Like, I don't think a lot of people knew Toney is 6 foot. So he's got good height and weight. And then also just... He was making explosive plays all year. Like, he makes defenders in the SEC just look like they hadn't played football before ever. How I see him projecting... I see him like a Deebo Samuel type player in the NFL. A player that offenses are going to give him a lot of screens, a lot of end arounds... And he can make... I don't think he's quite as strong as Deebo, but I think he's quicker than he is. And I see him kind of filling that role in the NFL where it's just... He's someone where if you get the ball in his hands, he's just going to make ridiculous plays. I don't know if there's a quicker player in the draft than him. Receiver-wise, that like just makes people miss as much as Toney does. With the ball in his hands. Who would you say does that better than Kardarius Toney in this draft?
I'll give you that. I just think he's raw as fuck. Like, I'm taking a player, and I need to know that he's on a team that has an emphasis on developing players. Because if they expect him to go in there day one and be, let's say, Antonio Brown, and play that role out the get-go, it's like, well, then you're setting him up for failure. But I agree with you. I like him, but I'm not going to go out here and put him in, like, my top 6 like you are. I don't believe in him that much.
Part of why I put
him
there
is because I just think he's a very risky prospect.
I think he's going early, like, not early, but, like, I think he's going to have really good draft capital. And
yeah, I do too, but I think that's more so off of his athletic ability than it is off of him being a really good receiver.
He'll probably be a better real-life player. Well, no, he'll definitely be a better real-life player than fantasy player because fantasy wise, I don't think he's going to ever amount to much. Like when we look at his college production, right? Like I get that he was transitioning to a wide receiver, but this is the only year, his senior year, where he had over 500 yards of production yards from scrimmage, right? This is the only year he had over 500 yards from scrimmage. And it took him to be a senior playing with Kyle Trask, who's one of the best quarterbacks in college right now. And there's just way too much of like red flags for me with Kardarius Toney that I'm not touching him wherever
he's
he's
doing it
going
against some of the best defenses too. LSU's defense and Alabama's defense, he torched both of them.
I'll draft him. I'm not gonna reach for him though. Like if it's good ADP, I'll pick him. But like you're valuing him at an early second round pick, which I wouldn't. I don't think I'd draft him right now at an early second. Like that mid to late second. Like if I'm a team that I had a bunch of draft picks, right? I had like 3 picks before 205, and then I'm sitting there 207, and I see Toney. Then yeah, I'd love to take a really risky prospect like Toney. But if I'm a team that I have no first round pick, 2 second round picks, and I need to hit on some players, I am not taking a prospect that I deem as risky as Toney is.
I'm not even taking him in the third. I want no part of Kardarius.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm so out on Kardarius.
JT,
I'm not a Devonta Smith hater. I'm a Kardarius Toney hater.
You better hope he's a bust. Oh my god!
I know he's going to be a bust.
I'm getting all these clips ready next season. All of them ready. And
clip it, Frank. Clip it. I don't know what bet we should make.
I'll get them. From the mock drafts we did, from this, oh man, you better hope he's a bust. Better hope so.
In your wildest dreams, what do you expect Kardarius Toney to be? Like I know you mentioned like Deebo Samuel, but like fantasy-wise production, like what's he hitting? What number? Give me a number per game. How many points per game is he getting?
Like as a rookie or in his prime?
His prime. Like, say, year 3 Kardarius Toney.
Well, I think prime Toney is like prime Percy Harvin in Minnesota.
Why?
He just says, when I watch both of them, that's who he reminds me of. Just with how, I'd say maybe he's not quite as straight line speed fast, but I think he can put up years with over 1,000 total yards. I think probably in his prime over 1,100 total yards. Yeah, and I think he can also score a decent amount. I just think he's someone that offenses are going to get the ball in his hands a ton, and he's just going to make defenders look stupid. He did it to Alabama. He had that entire defense smoked for that entire game. I think he had like 150 receiving yards or something. And then LSU, he smoked even worse. Like those are two really good SEC defenses. Texas A&M, he played well against. I think he had 2 touchdowns against Texas A&M. Frank's typing something. Do I have the clowness?
No, you don't. But, all right.
Oh.
One last thing and we'll move on. Lounis, about I think it's like 16.5 points per game is a wide receiver 1, and I think it's like 12 points per game is a wide receiver 2. Is Kardarius Toney like in that ever in his career? Is he like a normal mainstay 12 point per game kind of guy?
I definitely think like when like he's like in stride, like maybe not first year, but like towards like around his prime, the years before, years after, I think he could be a really good wide receiver too.
All right, I just don't see it.
Right,
I just want to get you on tape saying that.